尊敬的韩正副总理，尊敬的蔡奇书记，尊敬的各国领导人、各国际组织负责人、各代表团团长、各位嘉宾、女士们、先生们、朋友们，大家好，欢迎出席2021年中国国际服务贸易交易会全球服务贸易峰会。我代表组委会向支持和参与服贸会的各国政府、国际组织、各界朋友和全体工作人员表示衷心感谢，向线上线下参会的各位嘉宾表示诚挚的欢迎。本届服贸会是在全球疫情起伏反复、世界经济脆弱复苏的形势下举行的，彰显了中国政府对服务贸易发展的高度重视和扩大高水平开放的坚定信心。中华人民共和国主席习近平将发表重要视频致辞，国务院副总理韩正莅临会场。出席今天峰会并将发表致辞的还有白俄罗斯总统卢卡申科、巴圭总统纳卡列、津巴布韦总统姆兰加古瓦、爱尔兰总理马丁、越南总理范明正、经合组织秘书长科曼、联合国贸发会议代理秘书长杜兰特、世贸组织副总干事冈萨雷斯，来自16个国家的17位部长级嘉宾，以及外国驻华使节、国际组织代表、各交易团代表、有关跨国公司、中资企业和商协会代表出席今天的峰会。本届服贸会聚焦服务贸易数字化发展的新趋势，新设服务贸易发展成就展和数字贸易专区，首次使用首钢园区专题场馆，展览面积比上届扩大了18%，来自153个国家的和地区的1.2万多家企业参展参会，企业数比上届增长了52%。希望大家充分利用服贸会平台，积极沟通交流，努力达成更多合作成果，为全球服务贸易发展做出新的贡献。现在，让我们以热烈的掌声欢迎中华人民共和国主席习近平阁下发表视频致辞。
尊敬的各位来宾、女士们、先生们、朋友们，大家好！我仅代表中国政府和中国人民，并以我个人名义，向参加2021年中国国际服务贸易交易会的所有嘉宾，表示热烈的欢迎和诚挚的问候。本届服贸会以数字开启未来，服务促进发展为主题，相信在各方积极参与下，将成为一届特色鲜明、富有成效的盛会。服务贸易是国际贸易的重要组成部分和国际经贸合作的重要领域，在构建新发展格局中具有重要作用。我们愿同各方一道，坚持开放合作、互利共赢，共享服务贸易发展机遇，共促世界经济复苏和增长。我们将提高开放水平，在全国推进实施跨境服务贸易负面清单， 探索建设国家服务贸易创新发展示范区。我们将扩大合作空间，加大对共建“一带一路”国家服务业发展的支持，同世界共享中国技术发展成果。我们将加强服务领域规则建设，支持北京等地开展国际高水平自由贸易协定规则对接先行先试，打造数字贸易示范区。我们将继续支持中小企业创新发展，深化新三板改革，设立北京证券交易所，打造服务创新型中小企业主阵地。女士们、先生们、朋友们，让我们携手抗疫，共克时艰，坚持用和平、发展、合作、共赢的金钥匙，破解当前世界经济、国际贸易和投资面临的问题，共创更加美好的未来。谢谢大家。
感谢习近平主席的精彩致辞。刚才，习近平主席深刻阐述了加强服务贸易国际合作的重要意义，对办好本届服贸会提出了殷切希望，宣布了中国提高开放水平、扩大合作空间、加强服务领域规则建设、支持中小企业创新发展等重大开放举措，必将对促进全球服务贸易发展和中国服务业对外开放发挥重大而深远的作用。现在，请外方嘉宾致辞。首先，请白俄罗斯总统卢卡申科先生、乌拉圭总统纳卡列先生、津巴布韦总统姆兰加古瓦先生、爱尔兰总理马丁先生、越南总理范明珍先生分别致辞。
感谢胡春华副总理。首先，有请白俄罗斯共和国总统卢卡申科阁下致辞，请佩戴同传耳机。
Уважаемый председатель Си Цзиньпин, уважаемые главы государств, руководители правительств, дамы и господа, за годы прочной дружбы Беларуси и Китая мы неоднократно убеждались в последовательности политики Пекина, объединившего множество государств в рамках инициативы «Пояс и путь» на условиях справедливого, равноправного, взаимовыгодного сотрудничества. Более того, пережитые потрясения, обусловленные пандемией и иными глобальными вызовами, только укрепили его. Проведение выставки в столь непростое время – очень важный и символичный шаг Китайской Народной Республики. Ведь закрытие границ, снижение туристической активности, разрыв логистических цепочек и рост протекционизма, колоссальное давление на систему здравоохранения, отмена международных культурных мероприятий стали беспрецедентным испытанием для рынка услуг. В то же время кризис стимулировал бум цифровых технологий и послужил своего рода импульсом для качественной перезагрузки традиционной сферы услуг. В этом контексте впечатляет передовой опыт Китая по развитию и внедрению услуг дистанционного образования, онлайн-диагностики и лечения, применению цифровых технологий в области туризма. Беларусь уделяет особое внимание наращиванию экспорта и импорта услуг. Рассчитываем на расширение сотрудничества с Китаем в этой сфере как одним из ключевых партнеров нашей страны. В качестве приоритетного направления видим совместную работу государств по дальнейшей либерализации торговли услугами, устранению барьеров, привлечению инвестиций. В последние годы мы стали свидетелями активного роста глобальной электронной коммерции, в том числе трансграничной, объемы которой прирастают на 50% ежегодно. Данный инструмент стал эффективным ресурсом для восстановления экономического роста. Беларусь видит большие перспективы в выходе на китайские онлайн-площадки для продвижения не только товаров, но и услуг в сферах образования, туризма, медицины. Колоссальный ущерб коронавирус нанес туристической отрасли. Мы должны активизировать разработку мер для дальнейшего увеличения объема оказания туристических услуг. Все мы пережили мировой логистический коллапс. Благодаря уникальному географическому положению Беларуси наша транспортная инфраструктура пользуется активным спросом в качестве надежного транзитного коридора пояса и пути. С 2014 по 2020 год нам удалось 14 раз увеличить объемы следующих через нашу страну железнодорожных контейнерных перевозок по маршруту Китай-Европа-Китай. Республика Беларусь впредь будет принимать все необходимые меры для обеспечения бесперебойного движения железнодорожных составов по данному маршруту. В заключение хотел бы подчеркнуть, что мы продолжим вносить свой вклад в скорейшее восстановление мировой экономики и развивать разноплановое и взаимовыгодное международное сотрудничество в сфере услуг в интересах наших стран и народов. Хочу пожелать организаторам мероприятия успехов, а всем участникам плодотворной работы. Благодарю за внимание.
感谢卢卡申科阁下的致辞。下面有请乌拉圭东岸共和国总统拉卡列阁下致辞。
En nombre del gobierno del Uruguay, saludo al presidente Xi Jinping, al ministro de Comercio, señor Wang Wentao, a las autoridades del gobierno de Beijing, así como al pueblo de la República Popular de China. Uruguay destaca y valora la amistad de China, y en ese sentido les agradezco la invitación para participar en la apertura de esta cumbre. Esta feria se ha consolidado como una de las mayores plataformas de exhibición para China en lo que refiere a servicios y despierta el especial interés de la región latinoamericana y especialmente de nuestro país. Mi gobierno trabaja permanentemente para profundizar nuestras relaciones amistosas y de cooperación en el contexto de la importante asociación estratégica que esperamos consolidar hacia la integralidad en el marco de la franja y la ruta que compartimos, con el objetivo de aumentar nuestra complementariedad económica para el beneficio mutuo. El comercio de servicios se ha convertido en el segmento más dinámico del comercio mundial y la pandemia ha acentuado esta tendencia. En este contexto, Uruguay, que es un exportador neto de servicios, y China poseen un amplio margen para potenciar su complementariedad. China actualmente es nuestro principal socio comercial en los rubros más sobresalientes de nuestra economía, en lo que refiere al comercio de bienes, y estamos trabajando para profundizar el de servicios. En el año 2018, Uruguay y China suscribieron un memorándum de entendimiento para la cooperación en comercio de servicios. En este ámbito, en este rubro, Uruguay mantiene con China un superávit de $200 millones anuales, siendo ya un proveedor de servicios portuarios, logísticos y de software. Nuestro país se encuentra en un lugar privilegiado en América del Sur, con puertos y aeropuertos libres, con la presencia de zonas francas altamente competitivas, siendo un centro para empresas de innovación de todo el mundo, con proyección hacia toda la región de Latinoamérica. En servicios tradicionales como el turismo, resulta atractivo el turismo proveniente de China, siendo el más pujante en la pospandemia a nivel global, y Uruguay se encuentra preparado para recibirlo. Por su parte, la industria de la tecnología y la información ha crecido de manera constante durante estos últimos años. Es un sector marcadamente exportador, compuesto por un diverso ecosistema de empresas nacionales e internacionales y pequeñas y medianas empresas. Uruguay se destaca en la región en virtud de los excelentes índices de desarrollo de las TICs, el acceso a Internet a través de fibra óptica, la velocidad de descarga y su membresía al D9. Esto le permite a Uruguay posicionarse como número 1 en Latinoamérica en exportaciones de software per cápita y tercero en términos absolutos. La tradición uruguaya de contar con reglas claras y resultados previsibles redunda también en uno de los grandes activos con el que cuenta nuestro país. A su estabilidad, alta calidad de vida, marco normativo e incentivos tributarios para captar inversiones, se suma el talento humano proactivo y de calidad, con costos competitivos, generándose así una ecuación muy beneficiosa para las empresas internacionales. En ese sentido, estoy convencido de que tenemos un intenso camino por recorrer en un mundo que cada vez más digital, y en ese sentido coincidimos que es necesario un impulso al desarrollo de los servicios. Deseo transmitirles mi compromiso de seguir trabajando con la República Popular de China en la profundización de sus lazos con Uruguay, esperando poder visitar esta feria en próximas ediciones y augurándoles el mejor de los éxitos para ellos. Muchas gracias.
感谢拉卡列阁下的致辞。下面有请津巴布韦共和国总统姆南加古瓦阁下致辞。
His Excellency President Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe.
Of the Republic of Zimbabwe. And on my own behalf, I would like to thank the government of the People's Republic of China and His Excellency President Xi Jinping for inviting me to address this 2021 Global Trade in Services Summit. The organization of the summit, yet again, under the constricted environment of the COVID-19 pandemic, demonstrates China's continued commitment to partnering with nations of the world to strengthen global trade in services and further facilitate global economic recovery. I also wish to appreciate the excellent bilateral relations between Zimbabwe and China under our comprehensive strategic partnership framework. Zimbabwe is dedicated to working with China and indeed the rest of the world to foster an open and inclusive environment for socio-economic cooperation. Distinguished delegates, the theme of this year's summit, and I quote, towards digital future and a service-driven development, end of quote, is timely as the world economy is increasingly becoming technology and services driven. Equally important, open, transparent, and inclusive economic environments which promote the flow of production factors and enhance cross-border connectivity. To this end, my country continues to make notable milestones in improving the business environment informed by the global economic imperatives and in line with our national, regional, and continental agenda. Zimbabwe is promoting greater trade policy harmonization as well as transparent economic governance and a more inclusive growth. The prioritization of innovations had far-reaching impacts on the economy. In addition, reforms by my administration have seen structural transformation of our economy towards enhancing production and productivity in key sectors such as agriculture, mining, and manufacturing, among others. To propel this renewed focus, greater attention is being placed on efficient and cost-effective services, modern technologies, and skills upgrading. The vision of transforming Zimbabwe into an upper middle income economy by 2030 envisages a modern, efficient, and well-developed infrastructure to leapfrog Zimbabwe's trade and economic transformation. There are opportunities for investment in energy and power generation, transport infrastructure, and ICTs, among others. We remain grateful for the support extended by the Chinese government socio-economic development. In the health services sector, Zimbabwe looks forward to increased cooperation with China and other partners and investors in promoting science-based epidemic prevention and control systems, as well as innovation of medical technologies. My government has identified the digital economy as a strategic aspect to become an upper middle income economy by 2030. We continue to create an enabling ecosystem to unleash the power of innovation in driving cooperation for increased production, productivity, entrepreneurship, job creation, access to new markets, and the uptake of new technologies. International cooperation and intellectual property protection with regards to the digital sector is also being pursued. Furthermore, my country has developed the Smart Zimbabwe 2030 Master Plan to drive the pace of ICT innovations whilst addressing changing public needs and evolving global trends. Zimbabwe is spearheading smart agriculture in Africa that will guide the development of e-agriculture strategies on the African continent. Internally, my government is deploying an e-agriculture strategy which aims to transform agriculture for national prosperity and to lift many people out of poverty. Meanwhile, investment opportunities are abound in tourism infrastructure development and the broadening of our tourism products. Distinguished delegates, Zimbabwe stands ready to strengthen international cooperation in the field of trade in services. We are situated in a strategic location in southern Africa for regionally targeted investments. This can be taken advantage of under the Belt and Road Initiative. Zimbabwe's huge natural resource base, educated and skilled workforce are also attractive investment incentives. I therefore invite investments from China and the rest of the world to partner us in our industrialization and modernization journey towards shared progress and mutually beneficial cooperation.
感谢姆南加古瓦阁下的致辞。下面有请爱尔兰总理马丁阁下致辞。
Assembled dignitaries and distinguished guests, I am delighted to speak to you all this evening at the opening ceremony of this year's China International Fair for Trade in Services. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you for assigning Country of Honour status to Ireland this year. This is a great honour, especially for Team Ireland in China, and a positive symbol of our strong trade and investment relations. Team Ireland in China and the Irish company are excited to have this opportunity to showcase the best that Ireland has to offer, including in tourism and culture, higher education and technology, agri-food, trade and investment opportunities. Having previously participated in 2017, 2018 and 2020, this partnership has already been of great benefit to Irish companies and businesses. Around the world, certain areas of cooperation, such as tourism, aviation and culture, are slower in re-emerging post-COVID-19, but we are seeing them return. What is more, there's a great enthusiasm among the Irish and the Chinese people to renew these areas of cooperation as soon as we can safely do so, and to develop and to cultivate new areas. And that is why this trade fair is an excellent opportunity for Ireland to raise awareness of our many unique offerings to a large and informed Chinese audience. Indeed, despite the pandemic, Ireland and China witnessed strong overall trade figures in 2020, and this trend has continued throughout 2021 to date. A wide range of financial services, including fintech sectors and education, features strongly in the trade in services relationship between our two countries. Chinese technology companies have made significant investments in Ireland over the past 18 months. According to our Central Statistics Office, China was Ireland's largest trading partner in Asia last year, and fifth largest trading partner in the world. As a committed member state of the European Union, Ireland also fully supports the strengthening trade relationship between China and the European Union, which has seen EU-China trade in services grow from 2017 to 2019. Indeed, the EU and China now trade, on average, over 1 billion a day. We see much potential to build on these trading relationships in the coming years to the mutual benefit of each of our countries. On behalf of the Government of Ireland, I would like to reiterate my congratulations to all those involved in the 2021 China International Fair for Trade in Services. I wish you all a very successful event.
感谢马丁阁下的致辞。
Thank you,
下
Prime
面
Minister Martin.
有请越南
And
社
now
会主义共和国
invite
总理
the
范明正阁下
Prime
致
Minister
辞。
Phan Minh Trinh of Socialist Republic Vietnam.
Thưa đồng chí Tập Cận Bình, Tổng Bí thư, Chủ tịch nước
Your
Cộng hòa Nhân dân
Excellency,
Trung Hoa,
General Secretary of the CPC
thưa lãnh đạo
Central
các
Committee
nước
and
và
President,
tổ chức quốc
Comrade
tế,
Xi Jinping,
thưa
Your
quý vị
Excellencies,
đại
Heads
biểu,
of State, Government,
hôm
and
nay tôi
international
rất vui mừng,
organizations.
vinh
Ladies
dự
and
được phát
gentlemen,
biểu tại
friends,
lễ khai mạc
it is my
Hội
great
nghị Thượng
pleasure
đỉnh
and
Thương mại
honor to address
Dịch
the
vụ toàn cầu
2021 China International
2021
Fair for
với
Trade in
chủ đề
Services and the Global
số
Summit
hóa
on Trade in
mở ra
Services.
tương lai, dịch
Under
vụ thúc
the
đẩy phát triển.
theme
Trước hết, tôi xin trân trọng
Towards
cảm
a
ơn
digital
đồng chí
future
Tập Cận
and
Bình,
service-driven
Tổng
development,
Bí thư,
I would
Chủ
just
tịch nước Trung
to
Quốc,
thank General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee and President Xi Jinping for inviting me to this significant meeting. On behalf of the Vietnamese government, I wish to extend cordial greetings and best wishes to the distinguished guests participating in this event.
Tốt đẹp nhất. Thưa quý vị đại biểu, chúng ta đang bước sang thập niên thứ 3
We are living
của
in
thế
the
kỷ
third
21,
decade of the
kỷ
21st
nguyên số hóa
century,
với nhiều cơ hội rộng mở
an era of
và
both
những thách
vast
thức đan xen
opportunities and enormous
trong bối cảnh
challenges.
các nước đang
As
chịu tác động
countries
cộng
address the
hưởng của
multiple
đại dịch
challenges of
COVID-19,
COVID-19,
biến đổi
climate
khí hậu
change, and
và sự
depletion of
cạn kiệt
natural
tài nguyên.
resources.
Việc đẩy mạnh hợp tác
Enhancing
quốc tế
international
và áp
cooperation
dụng hiệu
and
quả công nghệ
effectively
số
applying digital
là một
technologies
trong
is
những
one
giải
of the
pháp
best
quan trọng
options that we
góp phần
have.
tạo động lực mới
It will
cho
contribute to
tăng trưởng
generating
và
new
phục hồi
drives
kinh tế,
for
từ
economic
đó
growth
bảo đảm
and
phát
recovery,
triển bền
and
vững,
in turn
bao trùm
boost
và toàn
sustainable,
diện.
inclusive, and
Hơn thế nữa,
all-round
việc đẩy mạnh
development.
hợp tác trong lĩnh vực số hóa
Stronger
là một
digital
nhân tố góp
cooperation
phần
is also
xây
conducive
dựng môi trường
to
hòa bình,
peace,
ổn
stability,
định, hợp tác
cooperation, and a
và
better
phát triển
development
giữa
environment
các
for
quốc gia,
countries in the
các dân
world.
tộc trên thế giới. Chúng tôi hết sức ấn tượng trước những thành tựu nổi
We
bật
highly
và đầu tư
commend
đúng hướng
the
về công nghệ số của nhiều quốc gia,
remarkable
trong đó có Trung Quốc.
achievements and
Thực tế
investment
cho
made
thấy
by
phát
China
triển
and
và
many
ứng
other
dụng khoa học
countries
công
in
nghệ
digital
đã
technologies.
và đang đem
What is
lại
happening
lợi ích to
demonstrates
lớn,
that the
giúp
development
các
and
nền kinh tế
application of
chuyển
science
đổi
and technology
mô hình
has
tăng trưởng, khai
created
thác
and
tốt
will
hơn
continue to
các
create
nguồn lực
enormous
hiện có,
benefits,
thúc
facilitate the
đẩy lưu
successful
chuyển dòng
shift to
vốn,
growth models,
hàng hóa
better
và
develop
dịch vụ với quy mô
resources, and
và
speed
mức
up the
độ
flow
chưa
of
từng có.
capital, goods, and
Việt Nam
services
sớm
with
nhận thức tầm quan
unprecedented
trọng
scale and
và đẩy mạnh
performance.
chuyển đổi số,
Vietnam
nền kinh
realized the
tế quốc
importance
gia,
of digital
phát triển
transformation
kinh tế
and
số,
developing a digital
xã hội
economy
số.
and digital
Theo tinh thần
society,
đó,
and
tôi xin
has
chia
been
sẻ
working hard
một số ý
toward
kiến
this end.
như sau.
In this
Một là
connection,
tận
let
dụng
me
cơ hội
share
phòng chống
the
dịch
following
COVID-19
thoughts.
để chuyển
First,
đổi số
taking
với
COVID
trọng tâm
response
là
as
công
an
nghệ số,
opportunity to
kinh tế
achieve
số,
digital
đẩy
transformation,
nhanh hoàn thành
centering
mục tiêu
around
phát triển
digital
bền vững
technologies and digital
2030
economy, and
của Liên
speed
Hợp
up
Quốc.
the implementation of the
Việt Nam mong
2030
rằng
Agenda
cộng
for
đồng quốc tế
Sustainable
sẽ hợp tác
Development.
tích cực, hiệu
Vietnam
quả
hopes to
để
see
chuyển đổi số
active and
thực sự
effective
trở thành một
international
phương thức mới,
cooperation to
giúp
let
thu hẹp
digital
không chỉ khoảng
transformation
cách
truly
phát triển
become
giữa
a
các
new
quốc
way
gia,
of narrowing the
mà còn
divide
hỗ trợ
among
thu
countries
hẹp bất
and
bình
social
đẳng xã
inequality,
hội,
and
giúp
enabling
người dân ở
access to
các khu
equitable
vực
public
kém phát
services for
triển,
people in
vùng sâu,
underdeveloped,
vùng xa,
remote,
biên giới,
island,
hải
and
đảo
border regions.
tiếp cận bình đẳng với các dịch vụ được cung cấp trên nền tảng số.
Second,
Hay là chú trọng vai trò
laying
của các
great
thỏa
emphasis
thuận
on the
quốc
role
tế
of
trong hợp
international
tác về công
agreements
nghệ
in digital
số và kinh
technologies
tế
and
số.
digital economic
Các thỏa thuận
cooperation.
này bên cạnh
In
việc thúc
addition
đẩy
to
công nghệ
promoting
số
the development
và
of
kinh
digital
tế số phát
technologies
triển,
and digital
cần
economy,
quan tâm thỏa đáng
such
tới nhu cầu
agreements
chính đáng
also
của
need to
các
take
nước
into account
trong việc bảo
countries'
đảm an
legitimate
toàn,
needs in
an
terms of
ninh mạng,
national
bảo
security,
đảm quyền riêng tư,
cybersecurity,
cũng như
protecting
chống
privacy,
độc quyền và xóa
anti-monopoly,
bỏ sự
and
bất bình đẳng
eliminating the
trong thực hiện
inequalities
các nghĩa
in
vụ thuế.
fulfilling tax
Với tinh thần này,
obligations.
Việt Nam đã
It is
tham gia
with
xây
this
dựng nhiều quy
spirit
tắc
that
mới
Vietnam
về
has
thương mại điện
been
tử
taking part
trong các
in
hiệp
the
định thương mại
formulation
tự
of
do,
new rules on
mà gần đây
e-commerce
nhất
and free
là
trade
hiệp định
agreements,
đối tác kinh tế toàn
including
diện khu vực
RCEP and
và hiệp định thương mại
ASEAN-China
tự
Free
do
Trade
ASEAN Trung Quốc.
Agreement.
Chúng tôi đánh giá
We
cao
speak
các ý
highly
tưởng và
of
hiện
China's
thực hóa của
proposals
Trung
and
Quốc trong
implementation
lĩnh vực này,
measures in this
sẵn sàng
area,
hợp tác với Trung Quốc
and
cũng
we
như các
stand
nước
ready
để
to
xây
work
dựng
with
khung pháp
China
lý
and all
phù
others
hợp
to
giúp
develop
cho kinh tế số
proper
phát
legal
triển
framework to
lành
take
mạnh,
the digital
nhanh nhưng
economy
đúng hướng,
forward along an
sâu rộng,
in-depth,
hiệu quả
effective,
và
and
hài
correct
hòa với
path
lợi ích
that
chung
is
của toàn
consistent
xã
with the
hội.
overall interest of the
Ba là
entire
đẩy
society.
mạnh hợp tác giáo dục, đào tạo
Third,
nguồn nhân lực
stepping
và
up
tăng cường
cooperation
kết
on
nối cộng đồng
education and
khoa học
human
công nghệ
resources and enhancing
giữa các quốc
synergy
gia,
among the
khu
science
vực
and
để
technology
nâng cao
community
trình độ
among countries
và
and
kỹ năng
regions,
số
so
cho
as to
doanh nghiệp
increase the
và người
digital
dân,
proficiency and
hỗ trợ người
skills
lao
of
động,
business and the
nhất là người
general
yếu
public.
thế,
We
người
should
có
also
hoàn
help
cảnh đặc biệt,
workers, especially
từng
vulnerable
bước thích
groups,
ứng
to
với công nghệ
gradually
số.
adapt to digital
Bốn là phát
technologies.
huy vai trò của công nghệ số trong
Fourth,
thuận lợi
speeding up the
hóa thương mại,
application of digital
hỗ trợ lưu
technologies
chuyển
in
hàng
trade
hóa, dịch
facilitation
vụ
so that
và
goods,
sự đi
services,
lại
and
của
people
người dân,
can flow more
nhất là
conveniently
lưu
and
chuyển hàng hóa
transportation can
bằng
be
vận
kept
tải
up,
đa phương thức
and the supply
để
chain
bảo
will
đảm
stay
cho chuỗi cung ứng không
in
bị
the
gián
context
đoạn
of the
trong bối cảnh
continuing
dịch
pandemic.
COVID-19 có thể còn kéo dài.
Fifth, countries
Năm
need
là
to
cần có
strengthen
sự hợp tác
cooperation
để
and
tăng
boost
cường
cross-border
thương mại
e-commerce
điện tử
on the
qua biên
basis
giới
of equality and
trên
mutual
cơ sở
benefit.
bình đẳng,
This will
cùng
help
có
to
lợi,
increase
qua đó
export,
giúp thúc đẩy xuất khẩu, nhất là xuất khẩu các loại
especially
nông thủy sản có tính thời vụ,
seasonal
thưa quý vị đại biểu,
agro
là
products,
nền kinh
including
tế
fruits
phát triển năng
and
động.
seafood.
Trong
Ladies
ASEAN
and gentlemen,
có mạng lưới 17 hiệp định thương mại tự do với trên
as a
60 đối tác,
dynamic economy
có
in
thị trường nội
ASEAN,
địa
Vietnam
gần
has
100
signed
triệu dân,
17 free trade
trong đó dân
agreements
số
with
trẻ
60
chiếm tỷ lệ
partners in the
cao,
world.
có
We
tinh
have
thần đổi mới sáng tạo,
a market
có
of
khả năng
nearly
thích ứng
100
nhanh với
million
công nghệ số,
population, among whom
tiềm
young
năng
people
phát triển
take up a
kinh tế
fairly
số
big share.
của Việt
They're
Nam là hết
innovative
sức
and
to lớn.
highly adaptable to digital
Hiện Việt Nam có
technologies.
khoảng 70% dân
Overall,
số sử dụng
Vietnam
Internet,
enjoys a broad
là một
prospect when
trong
it
nước
comes to
có
digital
tốc độ phát triển
technology.
công nghệ số cao
Now,
nhất
70%
trên thế
of the
giới.
Vietnamese population
Việt
are
Nam luôn mong
Internet
đợi hợp
users,
tác phát
and
triển
we
kinh
have
tế
one of
số
the
sẽ
fastest
được đặt ở vị
ICT
trí xứng
development
đáng,
in the world.
trở thành nội dung
Vietnam
trọng tâm
hopes
trong
that
hợp tác
digital
với các nước
economy cooperation
và trong
will
quan
be
hệ đối
placed at a
tác
proper
hợp tác
place
chiến lược
and
toàn
become
diện
a
Việt
priority
Nam Trung
in the
Quốc.
Vietnam-China Comprehensive Strategic
Hiện nay Trung
Partnership
Quốc là đối
and
tác
in the
thương
broader
mại lớn nhất
cooperation
của Việt
between
Nam.
Vietnam and all
Việt
other
Nam là
countries
đối
in the
tác thương
world.
mại lớn thứ
Now,
5
China
trên
is
thế giới
Vietnam's
và
largest
lớn
trading
nhất trong
partner, and
ASEAN
Vietnam,
với Trung
China's
Quốc.
fifth largest in the world
Việt Nam
and
coi trọng,
largest
sẵn sàng
among
cùng Trung
ASEAN
Quốc
nations.
và các nước thúc
Vietnam
đẩy quan hệ
attaches
thương mại,
great
dịch
importance
vụ nói
to
chung
and would like to
và
work
kinh
with
tế số
China
nói riêng,
and others to
không ngừng
steer
phát
the
triển theo
digital
hướng cởi
economy
mở,
and trade in
bao
services
trùm,
cooperation
bền vững,
in a way that is
tôn
more
trọng,
open,
bình đẳng,
inclusive,
nhân
sustainable,
văn,
and that is
cùng
based
có
on
lợi,
mutual respect,
đóng góp vào sự phát
humanistic
triển của
value,
mỗi nước
equality,
và
and
đem
mutual
lại
benefit.
lợi ích thiết thực
We
cho
hope
cộng
such
đồng, khu
cooperation
vực và
will
toàn
contribute
cầu.
to the sustainable
Xin
development
chúc
of
hội nghị
countries and
thượng
bring
đỉnh
tangible
thương mại
benefits
và
to
dịch
people
vụ
in the
toàn
region and
cầu
beyond.
năm
In closing, I
2021
wish the
thành công tốt đẹp.
2021 China
Chúc
International
quý vị
Fair for Trade
sức
and
khỏe,
Services and the
hạnh
Global
phúc
Summit
và
on
thành
Trade
công.
and Services of full
Tôi xin
success.
trân trọng
I wish
cảm
you
ơn.
all good health, happiness, and success. Thank you.
感谢范明正阁下的致辞
I wish to。
下面
thank
有请经济合作与发展组织秘书长科曼先生致辞。
Your
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today at the 2021 Global Trade and Services Summit. Thank you also to the Ministry of Commerce, the People's Government of Beijing Municipality, and also the organizing committee of the China International Fair for Trade and Services for hosting this event. Many countries are still dealing with the impacts of COVID-19, and while the global economic recovery is underway and the outlook has improved, the recovery remains uneven and uncertainty remains. Our latest analysis projects global GDP to grow by 6% in 2021 and 4.4% in 2022, following the 3.5% contraction in 2020. In China, the recovery has been stronger, with GDP projected to expand by 8.5% this year, as long as the health situation remains under control, which is of course the situation in China and all around the world. The pace of the recovery in China and around the world will also depend on well-functioning global markets and will be particularly contingent on enabling services trade. Services are at the heart of our economies, representing around 80% of global GDP and over half of China's GDP. They have been significantly impacted by the crisis. On average, across the G7, the value of total commercial services exports was 12% lower in the first quarter of 2021 than in the same period in 2019. Services trade also weakened in China, but commercial services exports actually grew by 23% in China over the same period. Latest OECD evidence shows that the global regulatory environment for services trade became more restrictive in 2020, with new barriers compounding the pandemic's shocks. Continued efforts to open up the services sector are key to facilitating a services-driven recovery and to resume the transition towards a more consumption-based economy. The pandemic also accelerated the use of digital services, highlighting their increasing importance to the global trade network. However, while remote working and online economic activities have become more prevalent, barriers affecting digital trade remain a concern. A strong, rules-based trading system and global standards can help overcome existing global divides. This includes through consistent approaches in international, regional and domestic regulatory instruments, such as the OECD Services Trade Restrictiveness Index, which can help facilitate global solutions to cross-border data flows. This underscores how important ongoing conversations about digital trade, such as the WTO's Joint Statement Initiative, are to building internationally cohesive outcomes. The OECD has been developing instruments to maximize the benefits of global trade and investment, as well as the digital transformation, ranging from our standards on responsible business conduct to the OECD recommendation on artificial intelligence. We've also worked to address the tax challenges raised by the digital transformation of our economies, and we very much appreciate China's involvement and support for our historic two-pillar agreement to reform international taxation rules. Dialogue and multilateral cooperation will remain key to fostering open, innovative and inclusive services trade. The OECD will continue to work with both our members and partners to find common approaches to common challenges, to continue to develop a stronger global economy, delivering benefits for our people all around the world. Thank you.
感谢科曼先生的致辞。下面有请联合国贸易和发展会议代理秘书长杜兰特女士致辞。
Ladies and gentlemen, definitely the digital revolution is shaping our future, and services are now worldwide at the center of economic activities. The theme of the 2021 China International Fair for Trade and Services, Services-Driven Development for a Digital Future, is thus of great relevance, and I am delighted to participate in the discussions. Digitalization has provided an enormous boost to a wide range of service sectors, such as retail, banking, and consulting. Moreover, the pandemic has greatly accelerated existing trends in digitalization. For example, the use of artificial intelligence, big data, and fifth-generation network has facilitated remote health consultation and diagnosis. Online platforms and massive open-line courses have allowed schools and universities to continue fulfilling their mission. We are coming to understand and appreciate the scope and direction these changes are likely to take in the future, as well as the impact on sustainable development. As you know, UNCTAD is primarily concerned with trade and development. Digital technologies have significantly improved the tradability of services. This offers an array of new opportunities for businesses in developing countries to reach global markets at lower cost and faster speed. At the same time, it provides developing countries with new venues for participation in global value chains. To give you a sense of the magnitude services promise for trade and development, the total export value of digitally deliverable services grew threefold between 2005 and 2019, that is from US $1.2 trillion in 2005 to 3.2 trillion in 2019. However, to a large extent, developing countries are yet to capture the gains arising from these opportunities. Most gains go to high-income countries. In 2019, high-income countries accounted for about 85% of the world's total digitally delivered service exports. Low-income countries capture only 0.1%. This suggests that service digitalization threatens to further increase and entrench existing inequalities both within and between countries. The digitalization of services poses numerous challenges at the policy, legal, regulatory, and ethical level. To meet these challenges, international and multi-stakeholders cooperation are required. At our upcoming interministerial conference, UNCTAD 15, delegates from 195 UNCTAD member states and other stakeholders will address this and other issues which are critical for an inclusive and resilient post-pandemic recovery. In the lead-up to UNCTAD 15, we will also host a Digital Global Services Forum between 22nd and 24th of September. I cordially invite you to join us in this important discussion. I thank you for your attention.
感谢杜兰特女士的致辞。下面有请世界贸易组织副总干事冈萨雷斯女士致辞。
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me to the Global Trading Services Summit and for providing me the opportunity to reflect on the future of services trade. Greater digitalization is changing the global economy and international trade. The pandemic has accelerated this long-term transformation as companies boosted their efforts to expand online operations and consumers adopted new digital shopping habits. The increased and accelerated uptake of digital technologies will cause a further expansion of trading services, which will account for an even greater share of world trade. This will be driven by the technological advances, but also by the continued rise of incomes in emerging countries, which will be associated with greater domestic consumption and supply of services. This is the case of China, for example, where services share of GDP jumped from 41% in 2005 to over 55% in 2020. Up to the pandemic, cross-border trading services had expanded at a faster pace than trading goods since 2011. Services share of world trade grew from 9% in 1970 to over 20% today. The WTO forecast that services could account for up to 1/3 of world trade on a balance of payments basis by 2040, representing a 50% increase in the share of services in global trade in just 2 decades. Technological advances will further transform the structure of trading services, with services that can be supplied digitally continuing to increase. These technological advances will also lead to a greater prevalence of cross-border trading services, while reducing in some instances the need for investing into a commercial presence abroad or for natural persons to travel to supply services in foreign markets. This change in the sectoral composition and means of delivering services will help increase the participation of developing countries in international trading services, as their capacity to export will be less dependent on the capacity of their firms to mobilize capital to invest and establish abroad. The trade of the future is not only one where more services will be traded as final products, but also one where services will increasingly be traded indirectly as value-added content embodied into goods trade. Already, services account for about 50% of world trade when measured in value-added terms, and according to the most recent data, foreign services content represents 12% of gross manufacturing exports in OECD economies. Services value-added content in goods trade, especially imported services, will grow further in the coming years, and accordingly, the importance of many developing countries as services exporters in value-added terms will increase as a result. The trade of the future will be one where the impact and relevance of government policies affecting trading services are amplified, and where, as a result, greater attention is paid to inside-the-border measures. This would include not only the more standard barriers to services trade, such as discriminatory or quantitative restrictions, but also barriers affecting the digital supply of services, such as restrictions on data flows and data localization requirements, which are of relevance for digital trade more generally. The greater focus on inside-the-border measures would also cover regulatory frameworks that enable and facilitate services, transactions, and trade. Currently, new rules on e-commerce, services domestic regulation, and investment facilitation for development are being negotiated among groups of the like-minded WTO members. While these 3 initiatives differ in many ways, they all require governments to take actions to enhance transparency, efficiency, effectiveness, and predictability of administrative requirements and procedures. Ultimately, these negotiations will help reduce fragmentation in international trade and investment governance and contribute to reducing costs, improving the business environment for efficient and sustainable trade and investment. I would like to conclude by wishing you very productive deliberations and a highly successful 2021 Global Trading Services Summit.
感谢冈萨雷斯女士的致辞。下面有请胡春华副总理继续主持峰会。
感谢各国领导人和各位国际组织负责人的精彩致辞。刚才各位嘉宾就深化服务贸易领域的务实合作，促进服务贸易创新发展，发表了很多真知灼见，提出了很多建设性意见，对于开好本次服贸会具有重要的意义。现在有请中华人民共和国国务院副总理韩正先生宣布2010年中国国际服务贸易交易会开幕。
我宣布，2001年中国国际服务贸易交易会开幕。